Welcome everyone to History Gone Wilder, part of Half History Will Travel. I'm your host, the Wilder historian, Dr. Lucas Wilder, and last time I covered the first half of the Battle of Peebles Farm, where Gouverneur K. Warren's 5th Corps captured some enemy entrenchments but halted. Now we move with that Union strike force as they get moving again. If you like what I do, please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already, join the Patreon page, and purchase something from one of my online stores. Every little bit helps. Thank you. The strike force, made up of units from the 5th and 9th Corps from the Army of the Potomac, carried the Confederate works, blocking the way to the Boydton Plank Road. Gouverneur K. Warren and his 5th Corps were stalled out, but the 9th Corps was ready to proceed with the advance. The Army's commander, George Meade, remained at Globe Tavern, monitoring the situation. Meade's hesitancy wasn't unwarranted. He feared that Confederate cavalry could attack the rear of the army. The beefsteak raid a few weeks before proved that the rebel horsemen could infiltrate and operate behind Union lines. In the mid-afternoon, the 9th Corps advanced toward the Boydton Plank Road and the next set of partially constructed earthworks put together by the Confederates. Parke went about deploying his brigades across the Jones and Pegram farms, with Simon Griffin's brigade of Robert Potter's division taking an advanced position on the Church Road. Henry Heath and Cadmus Wilcox's divisions of A.P. Hill's corps were now approaching the field, with Wilcox in the lead. James Lane and Samuel McGowan's brigades advanced on either side of the Church Road and slammed into Griffin's brigade, driving them back toward the Pegram farm. One Union soldier remembered the attack vividly. I had never before seen a full rebel line of battle in the open. In one of our previous battles, they had either been behind their entrenchments or partially covered by the timber. But there was no attempt at covering themselves here, and my heart went rapidly downward as I saw their strength and knowing how thin and light was the line formed by the 2nd Brigade. I have heard of Ma Parlington trying to sweep back the Atlantic Ocean with her mob. We were engaged in similar work. Behind Wilcox was 2 brigades from Henry Heath's division, 1 brigade under James Archer, who had just returned to the field after his imprisonment following his capture at the Battle of Gettysburg, and 1 brigade under William McRae. Heath would take command of all the Confederate forces on the field. When that happened, Archer was given command of Heath's 2 brigades, and William Macomb commanded Archer's brigade. The Confederates pressed southward, bypassing John Curtin's front line, but driving the 2nd line rearward. Curtin was with the 1st line, and quickly realized the predicament they were in. To make matters worse, McRae's brigade came down beside their left flank on their way to drive the Federals south. Curtin ordered his men to wheel around and hit McRae's men in the left flank, which drove 2 of the Confederate regiments away from their position. Curtin knew that he couldn't retreat because of the rebel brigade that had just swept by his right flank, and they could block him from reaching the main Union line. He took his men a little west in an effort to escape capture, but 2 regiments of Wade Hampton's cavalry in the entrenchments advanced on them and forced the majority of those 3 regiments to surrender, sending them to Petersburg as prisoners of war. The brigades of Lane and McRae continued their southward push, driving all the Federal units before them. They ran into the brigade of John Hartranft, who was stubborn and didn't want to yield any ground to the approaching rebels, but his flanks were being overwhelmed, and he too fell back, with many of his men being captured. There was nothing to do but fall back. Immediately on our left was a tangled swamp, and having been run out to the left farther than any other regiment, in falling back I found myself and my little regiment cut off from the rest by the swamp. Here we all came near being captured. The Confederates drove the Bluecoats all the way to the Pegram farm, where a stand was made. Heath and Wilcox's men continued to press them, but their own attack had become disorganized in the successful assault. Plus, Charles Griffin's division made it to the field and threatened the left flank of Archer's brigade. We had now driven them near a mile in confusion and rout, and there was considerable disorder in our ranks. The impulse of the first charge had spent itself. We had no supports, both flanks were uncovered, night was approaching, and therefore it was impossible to make a fresh charge and carry the position of the Pegram house, which was a strong one, defended by overwhelming numbers of fresh troops. Night brought an end to the furious attacks on the Jones and Pegram farms. The Union forces formed a defensive line running from Globe Tavern to the Pegram farm. Meanwhile, the Confederates pulled back to the Jones farm. When Meade informed Grant of the battle, Grant responded, "Hold on to what you have and be ready to advance. We must be greatly superior to the enemy in numbers on one flank or the other, and by working around each end, we will find where the enemy's weak point is."